throughout this class. The reason that we're here to teach this class is because we have a lot of experience and knowledge of the runes. We are by no means the authority. And so if there's anything that we say that does not resonate with you, please just, leave that part of it behind. Take what is beneficial. I will say that, so I have studied runes and read runes for probably close to about 5 years. And Bear, on the other hand, has done that for closer to...
Most of my life. I started when I was a teenager, and it's just carried it with me through the Army and back home, and it just keeps getting stronger and stronger.
And so I'm just going to give you like a brief overview of kind of how this class is going to look. In a minute, Bear's going to kind of give just a very brief history of the runes and talk a little bit about closed versus open practices. And then after that, we'll kind of switch the camera as we're going to go through and talk about each of the runes, the meanings behind them. And I'm also going to give some tarot and planetary associations with the runes. And then towards the end of the class is when I'll talk more about the divination part of that. And then any other magical uses, things that we do with the runes and that you can do at home yourself. So I want to let Bear kind of start with the history part here.
Well, so what the belief and the stories is that Freya brings the runes to Odin, but Odin he hasn't traded his eye for wisdom and knowledge. He doesn't understand what he has. So after he's given these runes, he sacrifices himself to Yggdrasil. He hangs himself in Yggdrasil for 9 days to show his commitment and his want of knowledge and just everything he can learn. So on the 9th day, he stabs himself with his spear. The blood hits Mimir's well, and he gains the understanding of the runes through his sacrifice. Freya, who brought the runes to the Aesir, was a Vanir. So anthropologically, it was 2 warring tribes of people with different gods that when they came together as a tribe, as a unit, as a new kingdom, they combined these gods, and Freya came over and joined the Aesir, and that it just became a new pantheon. And I mean,
and I will say, so basically the runes they're an ancient Norse writing system, and it's maybe a little bit unclear as to how much they were used for divination several thousand years ago, or whether that's more of a more modern take on it in the last several hundred years. Certainly, there are rune stones and rune inscriptions found. So the unfortunate thing is that we just don't have written history from that time to know exactly how it was done then. So,
well, and another, like she pointed out, it's a writing system. It's not a language. I've had a discussion online the other day with someone that said, you can't write English words in runes. And I'm like, of course you can. The sounds are the same. No one will understand it. No Viking would understand it. And I'm like, well, no Viking from Denmark would understand it if it was written in Spanish, or if you don't read Spanish and you use the same letters that we use in English, you still won't understand the word, but it'll still make the sounds. So someone who does speak that language, when they can translate it, they'll know exactly what it says. So it can be written in several languages, but it just won't mean anything unless you understand the language of the speaker that wrote it in the runes.
And then one other thing we were just going to briefly address is there's been discussion that we've heard as of late, and I think other people in our holistic and metaphysical community have also heard as regarding closed and open practices. And basically, a closed practice is something that is maybe very sacred to a certain culture, or yes, it would be a private practice, something that maybe is not okay for everybody to practice. Whereas an open practice is something that is more available for anybody. And I think our opinion on this, and I just wanted to address it because it was something that's been brought up to us, is that reading, writing, divining with runes, I would say is an open practice. It is basically like learning another language. It would be just like when I was in school and I learned how to speak Spanish, for example. I could equate it to that. Now, I will say I think there is significance in learning the history behind what you are practicing and the meaning. I did not make any rune sets or use them to enchant or make talismans until I really had a deep understanding of what they meant.
Which there's a line in the Havamal that says that no man should carve runes if they don't understand them.
At the same time, the way that you can learn about the runes is by actively practicing with them. So, again, I said earlier, we're not the authority on this, but from our experience, this is something that I think if you come at it with an honest heart and honest intentions of learning about this, I think that
Appreciation, not appropriation.
yes, that's kind of the way we would say that. So, and if anybody has any questions and wants us to elaborate more on our take on that, we'll be happy to email with you afterwards, or you can contact us on social media. And I think we're going to go ahead and switch cameras now, so you're not going to see our faces so much. You're still going to hear us talking, but we're going to switch over to some slides so that we can show y'all some videos. Okay, and the first thing I have up here, this is our contact info up at the top. We've got our website on here. You can find us on Facebook and Instagram if you look for ArtioArtisanals. And so just wanted to give everybody that information if you're not already connected with us via the socials. This is a free class. We would gladly accept any love donations, but of course that is not necessary because we are happy to spread the magic. But if you are interested in doing any kind of love donation for this, this is our Venmo account, which is just at ArtioArtisanals, and then our PayPal. And I'll put this on again at the end, but just wanted to put that information out there. And so the way that we're going to go through with the runes, we are actually going to be talking about the Elder Futhark. And so we're going to go in the order that I would say the alphabetical order that the runes are given in the Nordic alphabet.
ABCs of the
yes.
runes.
So, and what I'm going to do, Bear and I are both going to take turns talking about the runes. He's going to talk a little bit about the rune. And I've also, you'll see, so this is the first rune here, which is Feo. I've got two different pronunciations of it down here. Two different, there's about 3 or 4 different dialects that can be used to pronounce the runes. The first one that you see is the way that Bear and I have learned how to pronounce them. The second one is, they're both just as valid. So you might hear some people say Feo or some people say Fehu. I don't think either one is, it's just, again, different dialects on that. And then at the top of each card, you'll see I have a letter F here. This is the English equivalent of this letter right here. And then I'll also have some other visuals that I'll put on as I talk about tarot association. So I'm going to go ahead and let Bear start with this one.
So Feo symbolizes vitality and power, especially in the area of personal wealth and finances. The inherent strength of Feo means it is good for anyone, for any undertaking, for moving a situation onwards and upwards.
Go ahead.
It actually translates out to cattle. It actually translates out to the old cattle, which is how they valued. They didn't care for money. You couldn't eat gold in a hard winter. Cattle is how you showed your wealth. And so this is, what shows that power and vitality and wealth is this symbol here, Feo.
And so I'm also going to just, some of this might be, we might have very similar definitions. Cattle, wealth, abundance, success, and then even fertility and creation is an energy that you can associate this with. And the 2 tarot associations that I most strongly associate with this energy are the 9 of Pentacles and the 10 of Pentacles. And so if you are familiar with tarot, Pentacles have to do with your material wealth. And both of these are energies of extreme abundance. The 9 of Pentacles also has an energy of generosity in that. The 10 of Pentacles is kind of that energy of total material manifestation. And so again, for those of you that maybe have some experience with tarot, this might be a way to kind of help you understand more of the meaning behind this. And there's certainly other cards that I could add to this, but I would say those are the most prominent there. So. Next rune.
Next rune is Ur. It's translates to the U. So when you see it written, you know, when you're trying to translate into English, you'd use order as the U. It's good for any enterprise that has a high risk factor. It symbolizes rapid change, the shouldering of new responsibilities, and the ability to sweep away obstructions. Or it comes from the old, like wild cattle, the oryx. It would, you know, it's just extremely strong. It would bowl over anything in its way and just clear the way for your travel.
One thing I did not mention, I'm sorry, I didn't mention planetary associations on that Fehu one. And so I'm just going to go back to that for 1 second for those of you on this one, because that was one thing that I wanted to touch on. For me, this is an energy of Jupiter kind of conjuncting with Saturn, of that expansion in the physical world. So I just wanted to throw that out there. And then, so for like you said, the oryx or the ox, this is a rune of rapid change, but also courage, strength, action, energy, speed, stamina, and success. And the tarot association that I have for this one is going to be the strength card, just because that is, it's definitely that strong, powerful breakthrough energy. You know, and it's interesting. This is another, the planetary associations that I have with is the energies of Saturn and Uranus together. And we just had a major conjunction of those two planets. I think it was maybe last week or just this past week. And it's kind of it can be a touch uncomfortable. And I'm just going to give one small example. So we are in Texas right now, and we just had this crazy weather pattern come through. And it left people without power, without water. And it was devastating on some levels. But, you know, when I was talking to Bear about it, I was like, this aura is the energy that comes through after that and then helps us make those reformations and modifications to whether it's our bigger, you know, power grid systems or whatever needs to come about. So this is definitely kind of that energy together. And I thought it was interesting that we had that weather pattern happen. We had that conjunction of Saturn and Uranus. Actually, it might have been Mars and Uranus too. Might have been that. But anyway, that's definitely the energy of that can bring about that change that in the end creates a successful outcome there.
Next rune is thorn. It's the TH sound in English. This rune is associated with the god Thor. It's a powerful rune that can also be used in a protective manner. It's especially valuable when the querent is faced with circumstances beyond their control. It's the helping hand of fate that allows abrupt and potentially dangerous change to be overcome. So it's a protection rune that I always equate it to like the thorns on a rose. You know, if you're just looking at them, it's not going to hurt you. But if you prick it a little and touch it, it may give you a little, just a, hey, don't mess with me. But if you just grab it and squeeze as hard as you can, it's going to do real damage. The protection is equal to the amount of aggression that it's facing.
And I really like what you said there about that equal, you know, the other, because another thing that I have in my notes about this is this reactive force. And it can also lead to catharsis and purging, definitely can be a defensive energy. The tarot associations that I most closely associate with this energy are the 5 of Wands and the 7 of Wands. And on some of these tarot associations, you might think of the meanings of these cards combined. The 5 of Wands can be a highly conflictual energy. There's a lot of action, passion, activity going on in the Wands cards. And you can see even on this one, you can see people kind of fighting, going at each other. The 7 of Wands is a little bit more of this defensive energy where you might have these wands coming at you and you're standing there steady on your own 2 feet and able to protect and defend yourself. For me, when Thorn shows up in a reading, it's usually a signal of me needing to maybe call on some protective energies. There might be, and it doesn't always indicate people coming at you, but there might just be something coming into your energy field that is unwelcome, is kind of the way I want to. The planetary associations I kind of have with this one, it would be maybe an aspect of some sort between Mars and Pluto. Mars is that assertive, aggressive energy, and Pluto is the planet that brings about that death, transformation, rebirth. In that sense, I think Thorn can help you purge out things that are not for your highest and best good in your life. But again, I think that part of it is traversing through that conflict first.
The next rune is Onsor. It's translates to the letter A. This is literally Odin's rune. It's the rune of communication, and so augurs well for such matters as writing poetry, public speaking, or passing exams. It's also good if there's either some learning that needs to be done or some test that relies largely on personal magnetism and social skills. So, like I mentioned with Odin earlier, just that thirst for knowledge and wanting to know all is what just drove him through existence, and this just really represents that thirst for knowledge.
So like Bear said, for me, Onsor carries a really heavy ancestral energy to it. And I've actually got 3 cards that I'm going to put down here with this. It's a rune that can bring about truth, wisdom, enlightenment, even vision. And it can even, sometimes when this rune shows up for me, it's about heeding advice, whether that's advice that you get from your higher self, from the gods, from universe, or even from another person. The tarot associations that I most closely come to mind with Onsor is kind of a combination of some of these energies. I've got the Hierophant card out here. I've also got the Judgment card, and then the King of Swords. This Hierophant energy can definitely be about that connection to ancestral wisdom that comes with Onsor, or even maybe the need to consult a spiritual advisor when this rune shows up. For me, the Judgment energy is a lot about spiritual ascension. But I think that this rune can help bring about some of this energy into your life, some of that enlightenment, almost like a spiritual level up kind of energy, maybe is what ensues after you would pull Onsor in a rune reading. And then I've got the King of Swords, just because this rune is so strongly tied to the Mercury energy. And that King of Swords is... he is steadfast in his truth seeking, his ability to speak the truth, logic, wisdom. Again, he lives a lot in his mental body, and that would be the beneficial energy of Onsor there.
Rad is the next rune. It's translates to R. It's a rune of travel, and so is auspicious for all modes of transport and communications. It also rules travel in the broader sense of inner journeying by virtue of ruling every type of travel. A degree of change is implicit in this rune. This is like, when things need to get done and you don't see a way to do it, when this comes out, it shows you the path to take, and you just have to be brave enough to do it. And like I said, it's not necessarily the big move across country. It could be like leveling up and learning new techniques to your practice, or just things that you'll implement in your everyday life.
And so I'm going to put here our cards that I kind of associate with Rad. Again, like Bear said, this is definitely a travel rune, but I want you to think of journeying on different, dimensional levels, whether this is physical journeying, psychic journeying, spiritual journeying. And for me, I almost associate Rad more strongly with the psychic spiritual journeying. I would even associate this rune with astral travel, astral projection. That would be, if this was to show up in your reading, that might be a call for you to engage in something like that. And I think that through that journeying, that's what brings about some kind of evolution or change in your life. I've got 2 cards down here, and I want you to think of these energies combined. So if you were to combine this Chariot card energy and this, I'm back to this Judgment card again, just because this is about, so the Chariot card is all about taking the reins on life, directing your energy, aligning your light and dark, and it's typically a very forward movement energy. And I think when you combine these two together, this is definitely the energy of some kind of spiritual journeying that's bringing about maybe a different perspective, or more spiritual experiences. I mentioned earlier when I had that really massive spiritual awakening. This would definitely have been a rune that would have been a theme for that for me. The planetary associations that I have for rad would be some kind of aspect between Mercury and Neptune, just because Neptune is a little bit more, I mean, it has to do with our spiritual side, a little bit more of that watery energy that balances out some of that mental energy of the Mercury.
Kin is the next rune, and it translates out to the K or hard C. It's a very positive rune that symbolizes the gentler acts of creation, such as writing, music, or crafting talismans. It imbues all aspects of life with a protective and creative warmth. So I don't think it's just like I've never read it as like just the artist's rune. It's more of like art for a higher purpose. You know, talismans to protect you and your loved ones, poetry to show people the way. You know, it's like when art reaches that spiritual level.
I really like that, art and spirituality.
I really like
So literally translates, I don't know if Bear said this part, but to torch or beacon. And you can definitely see that in that Ace of Wands, just kind of that new vision energy, creativity, inspiration. It's the ability to harness those powers, to harness that power of the fire of life, and even brings in a little bit of fertility energy to me. So to me, this is the most strongly associated energies I have would be this Ace of Wands and this Empress energy together. That to me would be the energy of kin there, of that creative spark that leads to something more. The Empress is a highly fertile energy as well, and it's also kind of a nurturing energy. Um, I threw in the Three of Pentacles here just because this is, I think, the result that ensues once you harness this kin energy. So if this was to show up in a reading for you, that might be the call to, um, you know, harness whatever inspiration is coming into you. You know, if you are a poet or a painter or something like that, this might be your call for creativity. This is the energy that you implement. And then this is kind of the result that starts to ensue, is that you start having this output in the material world, or the physical world of all of this fiery, earthy energy right here. Oh, and the planets that I would associate with this, I would say with Mars, but around the spring equinox time. So if you think of that Mars energy in the springtime, that's going to definitely be the call of kin.
attacking that rebirth energy.
Mm-hmm.
The next rune is Jofu. It's a G sound. Our last name is Griffins. I always associate this with like our extended family. You know, everyone in the Griffin tribe. You know, this kind of ties that to it when I pull it. It's strongly associated with gifts, both giving and receiving. It's the act of giving that creates harmony in all things, and this rune is especially auspicious when the subject is personal relationships. I always use the term familial contracts, like when you pinky promise your kid that you're going to do something, you do it. You know, when you say you're going to do something for your tribe, you stand up and you do it. And this, just kind of keeps you on the straight and narrow when it comes to your family.
So just to expand a little bit on that, like you said, it's a very auspicious rune as far as gifts come. But there's also sacrifice sometimes associated with this rune. And if you think about the X and meeting in the middle, there can be an energy of compromise. This rune can even show up in a reading when you might be potentially entering into some kind of contractual relationship or partnership. And it would be an auspicious energy in that sense. It would definitely be a good signal for going forward with that. And then I've kind of got three different cards down here. And again, I would kind of combine some of these energies here with Jofu. I've got the Nine of Pentacles down here, which is again that the aspect of the Nine of Pentacles that Jofu speaks to me is that generosity that comes with it. It's the having the abundance and the ability to share that. And then I've also got the Six of Pentacles here, because sometimes that card shows up for me when I am literally getting some kind of physical payout, or, bringing a bunch of money in. Six of Pentacles to me is also one of the first pentacle cards where you have a balanced exchange of energy. And you'll even see on the card here how This guy's got the scales on here, and they are balanced. And so when you think about that compromise that we were talking about, that's that energy that Jofu can bring, is that equal give and take in the partnership. And I do think that there can be an emotional aspect to that. I've got the Six of Cups out there, not so much for the nostalgic meaning, but more for, um, I would say, just bringing in that purity of heart energy. And the planetary association that I would correlate with Jofu would most likely be Venus. This just that Venusian energy can be very expansive and loving, and it's a very benefic planet, especially in your partnership relationships. So
the next rune is Win, which is cool because that's where Wendy comes from. It's a W or a V sound. It's the ultimate happy rune. It's symbolizing the old adage, all's well that ends well. Like all good things, it's possible to have too much of it, so a degree of restraint is also implied. Naturally, it points to wonderful times and affairs of the heart. It just, like I said, it's the ultimate happy rune.
Yes, and I will say this is probably one of my favorites. And it was something that, just in looking up name origins and stuff, I traced my name back to that. I don't know that that was my mother's intention, but, maybe higher destiny calling there. Joy, harmony, fluidity, prosperity, ecstasy, spiritual reward, success. Those would all be energies that I would associate with Win. Pardon me. The two cards that I have pulled out here, I've got the 10 of Cups and the Star card. So for me, that 10 of Cups energy is that total emotional fulfillment. And you even see on this 10 of Cups card, not all of them have it, but this one has this rainbow on here. That, along with the Star card, I would also associate a healing energy with Win. So if this was to show up in your reading, I think there can be a couple of messages. It can be about embracing the emotional fulfillment that you already have. Sometimes it's making sure that your eyes are open to and your heart is open to receive all of that. But there can also be an energy of hope for the future, and healing that can come in to prepare any, emotional, spiritual, any kind of those traumas that we might go through. This is kind of the energy that comes in and helps us recover through that and find that joy again in life. So I still would strongly associate the planet of Venus with this, maybe an aspect between Venus and Saturn where you're implementing this into your daily life. That for me, that Saturn would be more about your day-to-day activities or even the structure. The stability. And so, I don't know if I would call it a trine between the two planets, but something along those lines. So
And then the next rune is Hoggle. It's translates to the English letter H. It's a rune that links directly to the primal forces of the universe. It can therefore be a little unpredictable. It can indicate frustration in some cases, but more generally points to the need to understand the precise limits of a particular situation and trust that luck will see you through it, that you'll find your way through it. It's just that I hate to use the term pull yourself up from the bootstraps because it's not always a good thing around, but it just shows you that you're going to make it through it. As bad as it gets, it will get better.
So far as I'm just going to kind of say, as we've been talking about the runes, we've had a lot of really benefic energies that we've come forth. And here's where we kind of, for the next couple runes, I want to say, I don't want to call them malefic energies. I don't think that, and especially if you're doing a rune spread, if you're pulling more than one rune at a time, the runes around that are going to affect the meaning. But the next few runes I would consider more of challenge runes. And so when haggle shows up in a reading, this is one where I grit my teeth and I go, oh, what is coming? Literally, it translates to hail. This is the wrath of nature. It is a destructive, uncontrolled force. It typically indicates that you're going to have obstacles to overcome. Now, for most of us that have gone through life and experienced, challenges and trauma and all of that, there's always another side to it. So, the one thing I don't want you to have fear or be scared if this rune shows up for you. This would literally be the energy of tornadoes and earthquakes and maybe a forest fire would be a
Ice
good
storms.
example. When a forest fire comes through, it can be devastating. You can lose a lot of wildlife and forests that have been around forever. But the result of that is that it creates this incredibly fertile soil to make the way for new growth. The tarot card that I associate most strongly with this is the Tower card. And so for those of you that are familiar with tarot, this is also probably a card that you go, it's not everybody's favorite card to show up in a reading. The Tower card can be catastrophic upheaval, cataclysmic change in your life. But again, I want you to think about the result that comes on the other side of that, because there's always some kind of growth that we go through, or sometimes when things are purged and pushed out of our lives, it's to make way for something new. When we have relationships that leave our lives, oftentimes we find out on the other side of that we can welcome new love in and experience something maybe even higher and better than we ever thought we could before. So the planets that I would kind of associate with haggle would be some kind of aspect between Mars, Pluto, and Uranus. The Uranus energy would be that kind of unpredictability about it. The Pluto energy of that death and purging something out. And then again, it's not, I'm just going to be real honest. This is just not a comfortable energy to experience. And so, again, depending on what shows up around it, if I was to pull haggle and Ur together, that might mean that something is coming in really quickly and it's going to be traumatic. Whereas if I was to pull haggle and wind together, I could probably expect a little bit smoother transition through whatever changes are coming. So get that guy out of
The
here.
next rune is going to be need. It's the English letter N when you translate it. It means precisely that. It implies that a situation has become blocked in some way and that it requires patience to resolve matters. Need is excellent for the achievement of long-term aims. It does generally not augur well in matters of love and sex and may indicate that bridges need to be built. Sometimes you just have to, you see the way that it's blocked and you know what you need to do. Maybe don't be so much in your head about things. Don't tie everything into physical relationships. More of the laying the bones, the skeletal work of what you need to do to build onward.
And so I'm going to put this, let me put it right side up. So again, another challenge rune typically, although sometimes when this shows up, there might be, I'm going to go back to that win energy. If I pull need and win in the same reading, there might be something that is blocking me off from experiencing that joy and that bliss. And there might be a change that I literally need to make in order to invite that energy in. Words that I typically associate with this is necessity, restriction, delays, distress, confusion, conflict. But at the same time, there can be kind of a determination or survival energy that can be brought forth from having this energy show up. The tarot association that I have with this is the Five of Pentacles. And again, not always a comfortable energy to experience. But from my own experience, this Five of Pentacle energy, it is more fueled by the way that I am thinking about it rather than by the literal circumstances. Sometimes the Five of Pentacles will show up when we are literally lacking in finances, but oftentimes that Five of Pentacles can be about a lack mindset. And so when I pull need, the first thing that I start thinking about is where's my head? Am I thinking about the things that I'm lacking? Am I focusing on what I don't have? Am I, literally chasing after money instead of letting it flow to me, or chasing after a relationship instead of letting it flow to me? So, I also, something that just kind of popped in my head is when this rune shows up, it's kind of a time to question, am I in flow with what the universe is bringing? Or am I kind of fighting against it and perpetuating a lack cycle? I would say the planetary association with this, I would say maybe a Saturn retrograde energy. It might be a time to revisit some of our structures that we have in the physical world and figure out what's working and what's bringing us abundance in, again, whether it's job, relationships, any of that, and what's not. And it might be a time to cut some strings loose in that sense.
The next rune is going to be ease. It actually translates out to ice. It's the, this last week we've had in Texas. It symbolizes a timeout when matters have reached such a stage that to freeze frame for a while is the soundest course of action to take. It allows energy to rebuild, which helps one to fight another day, just as winter allows the earth to rest before the growing phase of spring. You know, like this last week showed, it can come in hard and heavy and just really shut everything down because everyone needed a rest. You know, it we were lucky. My mom lost energy. She had to come and stay with us, and it gave her and our kids time to rest and rebuild and enjoy each other's company. Whereas during the everyday hustle, she may not have had that chance to come and take a break and just freeze for a minute.
I like that. So definitely another, and again, these last couple of runes have been runes that I typically perceive as more of challenge energies, and any of the runes can show up that way. But this is kind of the last heavy one for a minute, guys. So bear with us. Don't be discouraged. So like you said, literally translates to ice. It's about challenge, frustration, having some kind of blockages. But on the other side of that, there's an energy of standing still in this, of seeking, taking some inner reflection. And it can also be a call to seek clarity in matters. The tarot cards that I associate with this would be the Hanged Man and the Hermit. And I could do them either individually or kind of combined. Sometimes when this rune shows up for me, and it's more of this Hanged Man energy where I'm literally at a standstill, things might be out of my control. The Hanged Man is, you can notice on here, he's kind of tied up in some chains. He's not really able to move or go anywhere. It's a pause in that wheel's motion right there. But sometimes those pause moments are necessary pause moments. On the other hand, we've got the Hermit here. And in this sense, I'm not talking about the Hermit as a wise old sage per se, but as somebody that is, it's a call to be introspective, to seek that inner wisdom. It doesn't mean when is or Isa, when that shows up, it doesn't mean that you have to isolate yourself. It's not saying, take everybody out of your life or go sit on top of a mountain and meditate. That's not necessarily the call, although maybe it could be a call for meditation, if that's something that you're not taking time for. But it can also just be a call for seeking inner guidance. It's not a rune that is, it's not an action rune. It's not a movement rune. It's not a rune that is calling for you to do anything else but look internally. Another one that I would maybe, a planet that I would associate with this would be more of kind of a Neptune retrograde energy, which Neptune can have to do with dreams and fantasies and all of that. I think that maybe that retrograde energy of that could help us get grounded in it. But it's also, like I said, just I would say most strongly associated with those pause moments.
The next rune is going to be Jara. I've always used it as translating into a J. I've seen other people use it as a Y, but I've always seen it more of like the Y sound in fjord, where it's kind of that YJ combo that we don't really make in English. It's the rune of cyclical return. When you can harvest the rewards of your actions. The word also implies legalities and is auspicious for all litigation. It can also symbolize birth, be it of a child, relationship, or even of a business. It's harvest time. It's after you've worked really hard and everything's finally, you're not just cruising through. You still got to work to get the benefit, but that benefit is now coming in.
So I like this rune following is just because this is where you have movement again. This is where things are no longer standing still. So we've kind of moved away from some of those challenge energies. It is about reaping harvest. It's about realizing the results of the efforts that you have put into something. There is kind of a peaceful energy in this. There can even be kind of a completion energy in this. For me, when I pull Jara, it can definitely be prosperity coming. it's very cyclical. So I think about it with in association with the seasons, with the moon cycles, um, with anything that can be even, behavior patterns or movement of the planets that can be cyclical here. But it's definitely one that breaks through that stagnancy. For that reason, I kind of associate this most strongly with a combination of this Wheel of Fortune and the World card. The Wheel of Fortune is definitely where you're bringing in good fortune and you're experiencing that movement in your life. And then when you get to that world, that's where you get to the completion of a cycle. So I would almost put like Wheel of Fortune, world, and then we're back to Wheel of Fortune as kind of the energy of this of Jara here. Planetarily, I would associate it is a very earth-centered rune. So an aspect between Jupiter and Earth, because you've got this expansive energy, this movement, this whether it's a call to plant your seeds or harvest your crops. But there's a lot of, I would say, a very benefic rune in that sense.
The next rune is going to be ear. This is the one that I use when I translate runes to a Y. This is the most mystical rune and gives direct access to the occult or spirit world. Kind of the shaman's rune is what we call it. This power can be used in many ways, but ear is never evil. It's ultimately very protective, giving the power to remove anyone or anything that is creating obstacles.
So literally translates to you, which Y-E-W, like the type of tree. It brings in strength, reliability, enlightenment, endurance, inner knowing, but also kind of this death and rebirth cycle. This is one of the runes, and there's a couple that I strongly associate with the high priestess energy, but ear is definitely one of them. As far as it's a call to, we're kind of back to that inward seeking information, a call to go internal to or I would say maybe even channel down that information from above and then internalize that, but not necessarily move forward and manifest something with it. I would say with the high priestess and the death card together, this can be about spiritual rebirth coming about. And I don't want you to think of the death card in a negative way, but back to that sense of purging out things that are no longer serving us, especially if it's, I'm going to use the term self-limiting beliefs or something along those lines of, I'm not qualified to be a rune reader because I don't know a lot about runes. Well, that's something that, if you're in this class right now, you can totally, now you're learning, but that's what I'm talking about. Those kinds of beliefs are things that we tell ourselves that limit us. Yeah. And the planetary associations, I would say the moon and Pluto, which is most highly associated with these two cards right here. That moon is kind of what helps illuminate things that are a little bit hidden or secretive. And then again, we're back to kind of that energy, that Pluto energy of death and transformation and rebirth.
And next rune is Peor. It's the letter P in English. About things that are hidden. This is allied closely with all things hidden. Thus, it's good for gambling and financial speculation or investment of any kind. It's also good for finding anything lost, be it a physical possession or knowledge or things that you used to know how to do and you want to pick back up. I used to play guitar every day. I'm going to start doing that again. Or you've lost that spark in your life that makes you get up and go put your hands in the dirt and be one with nature. It's that feminine energy is,
Yes. So to expand on that, so this is a rune that I don't know where I first read this or learned this. I'm turning it sideways on purpose here, because literally it means cup or vagina. And it's because if you look at this as a receptive vehicle, or some kind of, it is receptive to bringing in energy, information, whatever it is from the universe there. It can definitely indicate things that are a mystery, secretive. I have strong, it's a very yin energy right here. Gives access to, so a little bit like ear in that sense of giving access to hidden information, knowledge, but can even relate to destiny, things that if you're seeking information about what's to come in the future, this can be a rune that shows up to say, hey, you're going to get those messages. Those are going to come through. The tarot associations I have with this, we're back at the High Priestess energy and the Moon card. And it's like I said, this is about tapping into those divine feminine energies. And again, on the High Priestess aspect of gaining access to hidden knowledge and information. This is another one that, like I said, very powerful yin energy in this. So if this is showing up for you, definitely channel that yin energy in your life there.
The next rune is going to be Ale. It's I use it as a Z when I translate. It's symbolizes protection in every form. Its shape resembles a lightning rod, drawing the life force down into the ground or drawing the power of the gods into everyday life. This is a powerful rune bestowing protection from enemies, increasing friendship and success in general. It's lots of folks think that it represents the elk, just that strong, noble, protective energy. You know, and I also like the way that, you know, it symbolizes either bringing that protection down to you or you sending that protection out. You know, it's a give and a take with it.
So like Bear said, this is a rune that I use this one frequently. I use it not just in things that we make, but in all kinds of enchantments to bring in that divine protection. I think it's a rune that helps ward off evil. And in the protection sense, so we talked about Thorn at the beginning. Thorn is that a little bit more of a reactive force, like Bear said, when you prick yourself on a thorn and then you kind of react to that. Where this is, there does not have to be conflict involved when this energy shows up. I also think it indicates a strong connection with the gods or with whatever you believe in. And it comes in to show you that you have the ability to channel down those energies from God, universe, spirit. Those can act as a guardian and shield you from danger. So some of the tarot associations, and I wouldn't say any of these individually, but maybe combine some of these energies here, would be this Magician, this Queen of Swords, and this Strength card. The Strength, just because it has that energy of that divine protection and gives us that strength and courage to keep moving forward. For me, the Magician is much more about channeling down that information from above and then implementing that out into the physical world. And so that's what I like when this shows up. For me, this is a little bit more of, okay, it's time to bring in that divine connection and then bring forth that energy into whatever it is that I'm acting, creating, doing. And then I've got the Queen of Swords thrown in here just because of her, I would say her ability to stay logical, rational, speaking the truth. She's also somebody that doesn't put up with any BS, and she's protected. She keeps her sword on her to protect herself from those energies. This is one, I'm going to be real honest. I had it left blank when I was writing my planetary associations because I looked at Bear and I was like, I don't know what planet. And he was like, well, the Earth. And that made total sense to me just because you're, again, bringing in those energies from the cosmos and channeling that down into your physical world here.
Mother Earth protection.
Mm-hmm. So I like that, yes. Like whether it's the Gaia energy. So that would be the planetary association I would give with that one.
The next rune is going to be Seagull. It's the S in English. Literally, it's the sun. This rune is symbolizing the life force itself. It's the sun at the center of the solar system around which everything revolves and which brings life and warmth to the planet. Seagull is very positive rune and bodes well for health in particular. It's just, this rune basically, it's that first really warm spring day when you just sit out there and just let the sun hit you in the face for a few minutes and reflect. It's that growth, that strength you feel, that the earth feels.
I echo all of that. Success, vigor, vitality. This rune shows up when goals are going to be achieved, when you are healthy, and I mean healthy in the physical body, mental body, spiritual body. You've got that power of positivity pulsating through your veins that can also lead to changes. But there is a feeling of wholeness in this. And the card that I've got here is the Sun card. And the Sun card in the tarot is one of the happier, more auspicious of the major arcana. For me, that Sun card carries that energy of everything is coming into alignment. And whether that's orchestration of you and your energies in life, or it's benefits from the universe, whatever it may be. So typically when I see this show up, I can say in a reading, there's assured success coming. There's energy that you're going to be experiencing. And I mean, having that like vitality and that desire to just accomplish anything in life. So definitely a more benefic of the energies of the runes. And again, I've got the Sun card out, planetary association. I would say the Sun. That would be my strongest association with that one.
Yeah, next one's going to be Tyr. It takes its name from the god Tyr, who sacrificed his hand to Fenrir so that he could be bound. It's obviously a very martial warrior like rune. It implies it's a battle rune. Tyr is at its best whenever there's a difficult or antagonistic situation to be faced. It's naturally combative and will always seek to win any confrontation. The positive spirit it brings to life will help in recovering from serious illness or accidents.
So literally translates to creator or sky god, or like Bear said, the god Tyr.
Which in the old, before Odin was the Allfather, Tyr was the chief god of some of the tribes before they merged, and Odin became the Allfather.
This is, he mentioned, I think it's kind of the warrior's rune, but it can also show up to indicate an energy of authority in your life. So if this is coming out in a reading, this is a very take charge, full steam ahead kind of energy. There's a strong leadership energy to this, and victory. If this shows up, for example, with the rune thorn, there might be some kind of competition or literal figurative battle that you might be encountering in life. But this right here showing up, Tyr showing up with thorn, is kind of assuring you success in that manner. It's kind of like this is say the winner's rune, but like it's definitely an energy of tackling something and accomplishing, winning, achieving. Tarot cards that I would associate with this would be the Emperor. That's that powerful Aries energy that is authoritative and a strong commanding energy. And even the Six of Wands, this to me is an energy of recognition, of achievement, of receiving accolades for your hard work. So both of those can go along with Tyr. And the planetary association would be Mars. Just that, again, that very strong, action-oriented, assertive, kind of energy.
Yeah, and where Thorn, like you said, was reactionary or reciprocated, this is like the overkill. I'm going to finish you off to never have to deal with this again. The next rune is Bjorn. It translates out to be, symbolizes a woman, womankind in general, or Mother Earth herself. This is thus a very protective and nurturing rune with specifically domestic duties. Thus, it's applicable to matters concerning fertility, children, spouse, and family. That same kind of feeling that I get with Jofu. This is like over the entire world, tribe, where you help your brothers whether you know them or not.
So, and literally it translates to birch, this is all about birth. It's strong fertility. This is the rune that I am waiting to experience this energy right now. It's the energy of spring and renewal and life coming back, growth, new beginnings. It is, like I said, very, I would say, associated with the Empress and the Ace of Cups here. The Empress, again, is back to this nurturing energy, very kind of maternal in that sense. And then the Ace of Cups is very much about being open to give and receive that love. There's no blockages or walls built up around our heart space. And so you're able to have that energy flow to you. Now, not that just want to give cautionary measures. So if this rune shows up in a reading, it doesn't always indicate pregnancy, but it is one that I have definitely pulled before for people that have recently conceived or about to. So I just give that out as like a, little PSA. So if that does show up, doesn't necessarily mean yes, for sure pregnancy. Now, on the other hand, if you're trying to increase your literal fertility in that sense, this could be an excellent rune for, enchanting your space or incorporating some of your magical practices for that. It would even be a good rune to enchant in your garden space, as you begin to plant this spring, to bring those potent fertile energies in.
All right, the next rune is going to be Ao. It translates out to E. You can kind of see it there. It's another change rune. It's excellent whenever there's a need to alter one's circumstances. The change it signifies is not abrupt or unexpected, though, and must be made carefully and within clear and prescribed limits. It defines the surrounding runes and makes the inherent flaws in the current position obvious. This is like a, fossil energy, or like the tortoise energy and the tortoise and the hare. It's that slow, steady, win the race type thing. You make your 20-year plan, and you just, no matter what, you stick to it, and it just slowly marches on until you achieve it.
That couldn't tie more perfectly with some of these tarot associations that I've got with this one. So again, he mentioned that transportation. This literally can be a rune that is tied to your chariot in life, your car, your ability to move around your, have the mobility of your legs, or the mobility to move around your city, or, even, again, maybe somewhat even with air travel. It is a rune of, like he said, steady progress. So I've got a few. If I was going to kind of pair these up here, I would say the tarot associations I have would be this Eight of Wands paired with the Knight of Pentacles. Because the Eight of Wands is about movement, and it's typically really fast, right? Whereas this Knight of Pentacles he is not fast. He is much slower in his movement. What I like about the Knight of Pentacles, and I would tie this totally to this Ao energy, is his ability to, although his pace may be a little bit slow and steady, the change that comes about from his movement creates these solid, stable, firm foundations. And so this would be, if this rune shows up, this is one that maybe indicates a little bit of patience is needed. But there's stability that's going to come about from that. This rune would be associated with Mercury. So we're kind of back to that mental energy. And I would, in that sense, I would also bring in this Six of Swords, because the Six of Swords can be paradigm shifting in your mental body. So the Six of Swords, most of the sixes are about movement in the tarot, but the Six of Swords in particular is more about some mental movement. So even though I wouldn't equate this, so Rad was the other movement rune that we talked about, that travel rune. I would say this to me is more in the physical world, less in the spiritual world, although I do think that there can be, reconstructing our belief systems, or having these paradigm shifts, or looking at something from a different perspective that may come about in the mental body as a result of this movement.
All right, the next rune is going to be Man, which is just that, man. It translates out to M. It's a very humanistic rune that governs relationships. It's very efficacious for situations in which aid from others is required, or if any group enterprise, especially if it will benefit others. It also governs the rational mind and is good for times when learning, inventiveness, or serious mental application is required. This is the ingenuity of humankind. You see a problem, how do we get this stuff across here? Well, I know if I carve this rock a little bit and round it off, I made a wheel, and that made it easier. It's that human spark that makes you solve problems.
So definitely, when I see this rune come up in a reading, one of the first things that typically comes in for me is having some kind of aid or assistance from fellow human beings. This would be, I'm going to go back to, I know we're talking about this ice storm a lot right now, but in here in Texas, we had this this catastrophic event come through, and I saw across our community in the news, people I knew, we participated in this, in people helping people. And this is definitely a rune that when this shows up in a reading, I typically know that I'm either giving or getting some kind of assistance from friends, people in my tribe, people that I do business with. There's something that's coming into my aid. It can indicate beneficial relationships, and it can even show up as in social order of, you know, we just in the US just had a new president come into office, and there was a little bit of conflict, a lot of conflict and controversy before that. And I think some of what was experienced collectively on some people's part, the energies that I felt, was this restoration of a little bit of social order coming back in. Um, so tarot associations, on that sense, I would definitely associate it with that Justice card energy. And in the Page of Pentacles, I think is what. So the Justice card is all about having this this fairness and balance in life. It's definitely a mental energy. Whereas the Page of Pentacles is more about, that to me is when you're receiving that helping hand from a fellow man or from somebody else in the physical world. Planets that I would associate with that would be probably the planet Saturn. But honestly, I almost have an astrological association, which would be that Aquarian energy, which is all about the 11th house and is tied strongly to society and that social order and the concern for fellow human beings.
Wendy, I have a question.
Yes.
I would like to know what tarot deck you were using.
This is Ciro Marchetti is the tarot author, and I think it is called the Tarot Royale, I believe. I'm so sorry that I don't have but I believe that I know it's the Marchetti deck, and I think it's the Tarot Royale.
All right, the next rune is Lagu. It's L in English. It's another female rune allied closely with the creative process. It's valuable for any artistic endeavor, be it painting, music, or writing. This rune gives the power to contact the side of human nature that is beyond the scope of the rational mind. So it governs the imagination and psychic powers.
All right, and then some of these I'm having to pull back out. By the way, guys, we are just a few away from getting to the end of this before we talk about the divination part. So with Lagu, so I'm going to go back to astrological associations, because this to me all day is the Pisces rune. This is this entirely that Piscean energy. It's got that water energy, that feminine fertility. There's a lot of healing and flow and renewal in this. Definitely a rune that can have to do with our imagination, with dreaming, with fantasies, even including, just that energy of kind of daydreaming, I guess I would call it. Tarot cards that I would associate most strongly with this would be the Ace of Cups, the Moon, and then that Seven of Cups. In the Ace of Cups, more of that heart healing, heart cleansing that can come as you open yourself up to that. I would say the Moon card, because the Moon is so strongly associated with Pisces. And then the Seven of Cups would be more about that kind of the fantasy aspect, because for me, that Seven of Cups energy, it's not always about being rooted and having your feet on the ground. Sometimes it can be a little bit about being in our emotions, or being in kind of that fantasy world of having all these options and kind of going, what do I want to do? If for me, when this rune shows up, I typically am experiencing some sort of emotional healing. Literally, I might take it as a call to do some kind of water therapy. Like, it might mean go get in the bath or take a shower and wash all of the funk off of you. And can just be, if this is showing up in a reading, you might need to incorporate some water magic into your practices.
The next rune is going to be Ing, and I use it translating to the Ing sound, the ing sound. It's a male rune, but a partner to Lagu. So this is like the masculine balance to the feminine energy of Lagu. It's Ing is extremely positive and brings great power to any situation. It's an excellent rune for bringing matters to a satisfactory conclusion, but perhaps more importantly, it gives the power to retain the success that's been achieved. So it's not just the short term, you know, like a ceasefire or a treaty. It's this is the way it's going to be. You know, we're going to keep this. This is the way. You know, we're supposed to act in accordance to this idea.
So like Bear said, definitely a masculine energy. So this is interesting because this was, before we have taught these classes, we've, again, practiced this for a long time, but I was reading up in another source, and this rune, it literally translates into, can translate into orgasm. And so it, in the French, they call that la petite mort, which is the little death. And that's all about this climax of energy in order, and that leads to this great release. So again, think about, you know, kind of harnessing some of that energy with this. There's definitely fertility energy in this. Can also have a lot to do with the earth, even though I would tie it more to fiery energies, can have to do with the earth god. I would associate this Ace of Wands and Four of Wands with this. And maybe even I would go back to even some of that Ace of Cups energy. I might throw that in here too, because for me, this Ace of Wands is this spark of inspiration. And sometimes I will say this, when Ing shows up in a reading, you might not be fully experiencing this Ace of Wands yet. You might be in that gestation period of kind of gathering all your energy together before you bring it forth to whatever creative pursuit or action that you're planning on taking there. But I think once you get to that, there's again, some of this watery energy incorporated into that. So I would say Ace of Wands, Ace of Cups. The Four of Wands for me is where Ing brings us into some sort of alignment. And so if you're, you know, harnessing these ace energies right here, these beginning energies, it's typically to bring us into higher alignment, whether that's in union or partnership with somebody or into spiritual alignment.
Next rune is Dag. It's the English letter D. Translates to day or daylight. It represents daylight, implying that it is of great value when a situation needs to be seen from all angles. It's also very good for making a positive change, particularly in personal values and outlook. This rune shows that everything is out in the open and there are no hidden dangers and dark corners. In this way, it represents security. Since the greatest aspect of human security is based on sound finances, Dag is generally accepted to be excellent for increasing financial standing. You know, it's just sometimes you make decisions because you don't have all the information, or you think someone's doing something because of something you think and it's something totally different. This brings all of that to light to where you can see all of the information before you make your decisions.
So definitely, like Bear said, translates to day or dawn. So if you think back to Seagull and that kind of that sun card energy, that there's a lot of that in this. It's almost like when the sun is coming up at the beginning of the, you know, the dawn, I guess that would be the time. But it's like the experience of watching the sunrise. And it's something that I used for a couple of years, I steadily practiced sun gazing. And that was staring at the sun directly for, you know, just as long as I could, but it was always in that first hour that it was coming up. And it opened up my third eye chakra immensely. So it was very powerful medicine. There's breakthrough clarity, illumination. There's a lot of honest energy in this. So when Dag shows up in a reading for me, this is where I'm assured that there's no secrets, no hidden stuff that I'm unaware of. It's kind of like everything is out in the open and on the table for you to make your decisions and move forward. Whereas some of those other energies like Ear and Peorth and some of those were much more about that hidden information. This is very much the opposite of that. You know, if I was to pull a combination of like Dag and Peorth in a reading, I would typically see that as the progression of that information that is hidden or lacking clarity there, that it's coming through. There's also a lot of happiness energy in this for me. And I would say tarot associations, I've got the Sun card and the Temperance card, because again, the Sun card energy, that's that success, vigor, vitality. But again, everything's illuminated, everything is orchestrated in perfect harmony. And then that temperance card for me is all about that balance in the physical, spiritual, mental, and emotional bodies that I think day can bring. And I know I realize, guys, on a few of these, I forgot planetary associations, but if you have questions, we can go back to them in a little bit. I would associate Dag most strongly with the sun and Jupiter together, which again is a very benefic energy, just that Jupiterian, like expansive. This can even be a rune that makes us want to get out and do something. And that's actually something I have written here is going on new embarkments of embarking down a new path. But again, it's because you have all of the information already at hand. And then we're going to move to our last actual written rune here,
which is Othel, the O. It's a very earthy and pragmatic rune governing the family home, land, furniture, and so on. It also governs all the activities in the domestic arena, such as physical labor on or around the dwelling, as well as gardening and even care of the family. Money, taking care of the family money in terms of investments, as it represents family life and ancestry in general. It also governs care of the elderly, a traditional family responsibility. So, like, we have this rune on the gateways to all the arches in our gardens, all of our vegetable beds and medicine beds. We have this rune at the head of it, just trying to get that growth and that bounty for the homestead and family.
So very much like the first rune that we started with, like Fehu, this is a very abundant energy. So when Othel shows up in a reading, for me, I typically get a vibe of, sinister. I don't know what the word is. I was going to say sinistry, of having like this very aligned home order, maybe very peaceful home life. So if there's not been peace in the home life and this shows up, that can be something that's showing up for you. There's safety, abundance, auspicious for your possessions. The Tarot Association would be the Ten of Pentacles, which again, that's back to that total achievement in the material world. And a lot of times in Ten of Pentacles cards, not this one per se, but you'll see, the family and the home behind them, and they're playing in their yard. And so this is, like I said, it's a good, excellent rune to enchant your home with, or put at the center of your home. Maybe above your hearth, above your fireplace, or just wherever the center is, to bring in that close family connection, and that abundance that you can experience there.
So this last one, it isn't. I mean, it's a rune now that we use it for divination. They've taken an idea from a Norse idea and put it to a rune to where you can read it. It's weird. It's a mysterious rune that tells the querent that they must accept what is to follow. The outcome is inevitable. This rune may signify a pleasant or a tough message depending on the surrounding runes. So it's kind of that whatever will be, the thing that can change is your reaction to it. It's not necessarily fate, but it's the idea that we have a fate. The Norns are weaving the web of weird, and fate is like each individual strand, and they're making what's going to happen, or what's happening, or has happened.
So this one was a harder one for me to come up with a tarot association, and I want to expand on what Bear mentioned. So weird, again, is, all of the runes are going to be influenced by what's pulled around them. But weird in particular is, I think that energy is less in our control. That is going to be an energy that is more like up to the gods, universe, to spirit. And again, not that we can't take actions within that. So in the Norse mythology, there's the three Norns, or three witches, that sit at the base of Yggdrasil. Their names are Urd, Verdi, and Skuld. Urd is kind of equivalent to past energy, or what was. Verdi is kind of our present. Skuld is what is to be, or like the future energy. And as they weave this web of weird, sometimes I think it's Urd and Verdi that kind of don't Skuld sometimes. She's maybe a little too unpredictable for them. But they weave this web of fate. And So, you know, at the same time, when I'm saying we're not necessarily in control, I do think that you can do active things to manifest and try to direct your destiny. The Tarot Association. So again, this one kind of, it was a little bit, it was hard for me to come up with one for this. I pulled out that Four of Wands again, because for me, so sometimes I hear this card referred to as the 1111 card, because you can literally see the four, the 11 and 11 here, which is kind of that indication of you're in sync with your universe. You know, it's I also see this sometimes as a portal energy of you're about to walk through this portal and bring some kind of harmony, union into your life. So, you know, that's where kind of where I would go with that. And now what we're going to do is kind of shift pace just a bit. And I'm going to talk about actually divining with the runes. I know we spent a good hour there, so thank you guys for bearing with us. The rest of this won't take nearly as long. So I do have folks that will ask me, okay, so you know, I took notes in your class, or I've got a book, which, by the way, if you do have questions on book recommendations, you can email us or contact us and we can give you several. But they will ask me, okay, where do I go from here? And so the first thing that I would suggest is start by pulling one rune a day. And so I've got my little bag here and I've got my runes in here. And these are actually, you've seen some other runes on the table. These are runes that Bear has made. This is not a set we made. This is a set that Bear had when I think he was 12 years old and he gifted it to me. Oh, okay. He made that he's had since he was like 12. So this is actually what I use. And you can see what I will do is I'll start by putting, you can use a bag or a box. And I just start by, just like you would with tarot cards or with any other tools that you're using for divining, I like to get my energy on it. And so I will literally think about what message do I need to receive today? And so again, if you're just starting, I would recommend one rune pull a day, just to start to get to know them, because those tarot cards had all these beautiful images on there. The runes are a little bit harder to connect with the imagery on there. So I'm going to see what universe wants me to know right now. And I pulled Jara. I don't know if you can see that on the camera there. It's kind of little, kind of hold it up there. And so this for me, this is all about, when I see this right here, I feel I can kind of take a deep breath. I think this is very much for me about the spring energy that's coming. I think it's indicative of the cycles that we've just completed, literally weather-wise. I will also say that weather affected Bear and I's work. We didn't work for 2 weekends, and that's all we do to bring in income. And so when I see this, it's like, okay, take a breath, Wendy. You're going to get back in your routine, back in your cycle, back into bringing in that abundance. You know, I will say that I trusted in the universe, and I did not have any, you know, didn't go through major anxiety over it. And like I said, there's some kind of harvest, some kind of reward that I can see that's in store there. So when I do that, when I pull that rune there, what I literally would do is, and this is not my book here, but you know, I would take my journal and I would draw my rune and write it down. And if you have to, you look it up and you go, okay, what is Jara about? For me personally, I'm a person that learns by writing things down, by taking notes. I know some people that like to literally write the date, the rune they pulled, and that helps them to go back and reflect on how that showed up for them. Because in another week, you might look back and go, okay, well, I had Jara here, and then, you know, I received a promotion at work, and I had put in, you know, all these extra hours over the last year, and now I can see how this showed up for me. And so that would be, again, in the beginning, my recommendation on just how to start with the runes. I would say I spent several months of pulling one rune a day, and I would write about it. And it took me a couple of months to get through all the runes, because there were times where I had repeat pulls. And then I would kind of reflect on that. Now, once you know, it might not take you that long. This is all, you know, personal preference, personal practice. Another way that you can pull runes is literally any tarot spread, oracle card spread, anything like that that you use, you can use for the runes. And so what I'm going to do, and I'm going to take a deep breath here, because I'm going to see if I can tap into everybody on Zoom here. everybody in our room. I'm going to do a reading right now for our full moon in Virgo coming up. So I'm going to actually pull 5 runes, and I'm going to show you guys how I'm going to do that. So the first rune that I'm going to pull here is for what challenges we might be facing for this full moon. Okay, I pulled Ale there. The next rune that I'm going to pull is going to be for what our strengths are. I've got is. The next rune that I'm going to pull is going to be for what needs to be released. Got Jara. And the next one for what we want to manifest with this full moon. Now I've got Ing. And then I'm going to pull one last one for kind of the general overall energy of this Virgo full moon. And I've got Ale. So interesting. Okay. So I'm going to tell you guys what I see. So I want to start with this middle one right here. This can be, so we're on Ale, which again, this is our movement. Is it looking, okay. This is our movement rune right here, literally tied to that horse energy, that transportation, that Knight of Pentacles energy that we looked at, even kind of that 6 of Swords. This might be a time to start changing some of our mindsets, or literally to start moving around some more. So, you know, I know even this past year, some of us may have experienced less movement than we were previously accustomed to. I'm not giving any advice about COVID practices or any of that here. I'm just kind of going over this energy. But this might be a message of the need for us to get out, to move around, to, you know, gain some new experiences in that way. And again, that's just kind of that general energy. Now down here in our challenge aspect, we have this Ale. I think that this could definitely be about a challenge of us tapping into that divine knowledge or channeling down that energy from above. And I think that's why in our strengths, what we're going to see up here is needed. This can be, so when I see something like this in my challenge, this is already telling me, okay, Wendy, you might need to get quiet here and start listening a little bit more. You might need to do a little bit more magic, or if you have any matron or patron goddesses, gods or goddesses that you work with, this might be a time to do some magic and call upon them to bring in that information that, you know, again, if we go back to this divine protection right here, maybe we're having challenges in trusting source in what's going on in our lives, and we're questioning that. Now, when I move up here to what our strengths can be, we've got this Isa. So this is one of those energies where I might even, you know, if I was doing this, I might even pull a tarot card on it, because I'm going, okay, well, I see the general energy is this movement, but then we've got is, which is calling us to stand still here. But I think what in this strength, what this is going to be about is this internal introspective energy. So if you remember, we pulled the Hanged Man, but I think it's more about hermit energy in this spread right here, that we might need to seek inner knowledge, you know, and maybe that's what this is showing right here. Maybe the knowledge isn't coming in from above or from the universe. We're going to have to go internal to seek the answers here versus looking external for that. Over here in the release area, we've got Jara here. Immediately what I want to say, which is I don't want to say, this doesn't mean don't do your planting or don't plan on, you know, starting a new cycle. I think that this can be about the release of the expectation of bringing in a certain harvest. You know, if you have a certain plan in mind for your finances, there might be a need to release some of that control over that and move more with the flow. In our manifest, we've got this masculine fertility energy, this Ing energy right here. This is much more about action and moving forward. I think these two energies right here together can help us feel like things are moving again. I could also see this. I know that I think Mercury has gone direct. I could see this as the energy of all of our planets starting to move forward right now, hopefully helping us feel like things in life are kind of picking up speed again and moving ahead. This can also, again, this being in the manifest position can also, this might be about beginning that planting. Even though this was in the release area, maybe this is about releasing the past cycle, the winter time that we've just gone through, and beginning to plant for the spring. And I say plant, but you can think of that figuratively as well, as, you know, now this might be time to start implementing the goals that you have set for your 2021, or checking off your milestones to make sure you're getting there. So that was just kind of a demonstration of how you can do a rune spread here. And again, this is not a spread. This is just a personal spread that I use for sometimes full and new moons. And the next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to show you how to cast runes. Now, it's going to be a little bit different because I'm on this side of the table and our camera's on the other side. So I might have to move them around a little bit. But when I'm casting, I will shuffle them. And I don't necessarily throw all of the runes out. And I say throw, I'm more going to drop them. This is, would say more of a leave it up to, I guess all of them are leave it up to the gods, but I'm going to take a handful of them and I threw them out here. Now, and again, I hope you can see this on the camera. So the first thing I'm going to do is kind of, if there's any that are stacked on each other, I'm pulling them off. Now, I know today, Bear and I didn't talk about reversals or Merkstave. Merkstave is when they're on their side. Reversals is when they're upside down. That would be maybe information for another class. So when I cast, the first thing I'm going to do is any runes that are upside down, I'm going to pull off the table. Let me also say that you might read or have experience with other ways to cast runes. I don't think that there's a right and a wrong. I think it's more about what your intention is when you're pulling those runes out and throwing them down. So I've got a couple here that are upside down like this. So I'm just going to pull these guys off. They're not going to be a part of my reading. And so for those of you on the Zoom, keep in mind, and guys looking at the board here, what's closest to me is over here. What's on this side is going to be, so I talked about those three Norns, Urd, Verdi, and Skuld. I want you to think of the area closest to you as that Urd area, that past energy or potential energies that you've just already been experiencing. How interesting is what's furthest away from me. I'm just laughing at what we just pulled. But so, and again, I might have them a little bit more spread out. I wanted to keep them under the camera for this. And you could even use a casting mat or some kind of tray or something to cast them in to make sure you're not losing stuff. But more what's going to be in the middle here is going to be my present energy. And then as I get further away, that's going to be more of your future energy. So I could even look at it as more of this is probably what I could not have pulled more perfect runes for what's going on. This could be more of what I've already gone through right here. This is more of maybe right in these lines right here of kind of what's going on at the moment. And then this can be more about what is to come. So when I look at this here, haggle. So again, in Texas, just went through this catastrophic ice storm. Definitely don't want to have to do that again in my life. But I'm glad that when I see this, I'm like, okay, I'm glad that this one's closest to me because I've already gone through that experience right there. You know, if this reading applies to any of you guys, I want to say that the chaos, the trauma, all of that stuff is going to start to feel like you are moving past that and it is behind you. And then in my present energies right here, I've got Fehu, or no, excuse me, Ansur. Sorry, I'm looking at it upside down. Ansur and Ur. So for me, this is literally, this Ansur energy could be related to me, literally what we're doing in this class right now, which is, and I asked before I showed up today to please help me be a clear channel for God's universe and spirit to bring the right information forward. This could be, like I said, I mentioned earlier, I might even be on the lookout for somebody bringing me advice. Maybe after the class, you know, somebody says, hey, next time, can you talk about this? And I might take that information into account and go and take that advice and say, okay, that might be some important information. When I see Ur, I'm really grateful to see this. Even though I said these two energies together could definitely be like the Tower card energy, because Haggle's closest to me and more in the past, I'm going to welcome this Ur energy of this change and this strength and this hopefully feeling some of that energy again, because I will say, while we were kind of locked at home through this ice storm, and even probably some of us through 2020, have maybe not felt a lot of motivation to push forward with tasks and projects because it's more challenging to do that right now. This is a benefic energy that's going to help you have the strength and courage to push forward and move ahead with those tasks. And then when I look in the future, I've got man, I've got ear, I've also got Jara and Ing, which, like I said, I was laughing since we had just pulled those. Man, I'm looking at, okay, I'm definitely probably going to be giving or receiving some kind of aid or assistance to somebody there. You know, ear is, for me, it's the reminder to stay plugged into my psychic senses, to not quit seeking, or you know, to continue keeping that intuitive channel open so that I can receive the messages I need to. Maybe I'm even going to be receiving some kind of spiritual advice from somebody when I see these two energies combined like that. Okay, or advice from spirit, like Bear said. And then back to these two guys, which we just talked about, but they showed up more in my future energy. And this is me back to going, okay, this is strong fertility energy. I definitely see the need. So I'm really feeling this. It's time to start a new cycle. That's what I feel with that. It's like, this is the cycle here. There's going to be harvest to be had. Whatever I've been mulling over creatively in my brain or thinking about starting, this is like, go ahead and bring that forth. So that's more on casting runes. And I know I'm not going to spend too much time on that, other than letting you know, once again, when you cast, what is closest to you is going to be your past. What's kind of tends to be towards the middle is kind of your present energy. And then what is furthest away from you is your future. And just like with reading tarot and oracle, energies are changeable. So when I see this in my future, I like this energy. I like the combination of that. I like the way it feels. I like that fertility. I like the fact that I maybe sense some cycles closing and new ones opening up. I'm going to do what I can to help bring this about in my life. So, you know, if I'd pulled tarot cards that were favorable, I'm going to take the actions that I can to harvest those energies and help those come to fruition. Excuse me, fruition. So I'm going to let Bear talk for a minute about other ways that you can use runes personally. We do a lot with them, and I'll let him kind of pull some stuff maybe to the middle on camera.
So we do a lot of enchantments. We'll write things on different pieces. We'll translate them into the runes to where we know what they say, and not necessarily everyone else knows what it is. We put them on talismans for protection. We carve them into candles. We decorate some of our other tools with them. And this one Wendy burned into is a little pyrography. And not only can you take just the meaning from the single rune or spelling it out into a word, you can also make what's called a bind rune, which, like this one here, in English, the runes spell out wolf. So it's for the Ulfenders, the kind of the Norse special forces. You know, they were the elite secret, the Viking ninjas, you know, where berserkers would go out and cause a distraction and chaos. The Ulfenders would sneak around like a pack of wolves and kill the king or the jarl and end the battle in the war.
And the bind rune is basically and again, we would have to do a whole nother class kind of on how to create bind runes, because there's multiple ways. But what Bear has done here is he basically just overlaid several runes here. He's got Wen, the P kind of shaped rune there that represents W. He's got Othel there. He's got Lagu, and then he's got Fehu. And so if you see the way he did that bind rune is he just literally overlaid 4 different runes on top of each other to infuse all of that energies into one talisman right here.
And then you can also stack them instead of laying them. I don't know if this is going to pick up on the bone.
You put your hands underneath it so it has something to focus on.
There you go. Pull it up.
So this one is, instead of stacked on top, it's written down in a line, but it conveys a, and this is closer to how like the Icelandic staves were. They would take individual runes or
Let's see if I
symbols
can
to
get that
make
one.
new protection or new magic through these staves and these bind runes, and then they would tie them together into other bind runes to make, you know, like the Vegvisir, the Augusjalmur.
And you can see on this one, it's basically like a long line of the runes, and you've got Lagu at the top, you've got Bjor, you've got Kin, you've got Othel on here, you've also got Jofu, and then off of Jofu, you've got Fehu and Onsor. And it was done on a beaver jawbone, but this is, I'm sorry guys, there we go, kind of see it right there. So again, I guess the biggest message I want to give when you start using the runes in a way like this to create enchantments or talisman is that there's not necessarily a right or a wrong way. The most important thing for me is the intention that is being infused into that. You know, if you're coming at it, like I said earlier, with a good heart and you've got clear intention about the runes that you're putting on into these symbols, I guarantee you that's going to create some magic for you right there.
You guys have some questions.
Okay. I think that's kind of all we were going to talk about.
This, what you use to carve them out of. So in our magic,
Okay.
we use a lot of animal, mineral, and vegetable. So we have like the animal from the deer antler. We have copper runes, and then we also have some bottleneck gourd runes. So you can put your runes on whatever you're drawn to. It doesn't have to necessarily be a certain way or a certain material, you know, just whatever resonates and works for you and your practice.
All right, and so now for those questions.
So first question, if you're reading for someone else, do the runes closest to them indicate the past?
I would say it depends on, so for my personal practice, when I am pulling runes for somebody else or having them cast them, I often, and this is, again, my personal practice, I allow the other person, so I don't usually draw runes for somebody that I'm reading for. I will usually shuffle them around before I start, giving clear intention to my runes to allow this other person's energy to come in, to bring them the messages they need. And then I'm very diligent about cleansing them afterwards as well, because I don't want to carry somebody else's energies over. So if I was casting the runes for somebody else, I would read what is closest to me as the present energy. However, if I was having the other person draw the runes and cast them, then the energy is closest to them. I think the important thing is to envision in your head how you want it to look. So again, if I was going to pull some rune or cast for Bear right now, I would be thinking in my head about what's closest to him as being, or what's closest to me being the present, or excuse me, the past, then present, then future. So, you can kind of, I think with most divinatory tools, you can kind of give your psychic messages that way. So I would say set the intention. That would be the important thing there. But typically, whoever is pulling them, if you're doing that, I would read what's closest to you as past.
And the next question is, my runes aren't flat. Does that cause an issue with how to read them since they'll land on the side?
With casting, it might.
Yes.
With pulling runes, it definitely won't.
And so, a solution for that might be to use that as a set that you just pull, whether it's your daily messages or you just use as a spread. Because if you guys noticed earlier, and again, I'm not the authority, other people might do it differently, but I pulled one rune at a time when I was doing that spread. So you can use your not flat runes, your rounded or whatever they are, for just simply pulling. And then you could get another set or even make another set that is flat on the bottom, and that would work better for casting. Because yes, I do think having a rounded edge, I mean, it's gonna, you can try it and then see, but I could see how that would be questionable because you might have everything rolling over, or you might have some that always show up, with one side up because of the way it sets.
Maybe cast on a skin, like a rabbit skin or something, so it has that little buffer.
Oh, that's a good idea.
Excellent. So you want to let them know if they got questions, they can unmute or put it in chat.
Yes. So if you have questions, you can. And do anybody in the room have questions? And y'all can always ask us after we get off of here. I'm going to put this back up here, our contact information again. And then I'm going to turn off or we're going to or do you do that?
Yeah, you can just
We're-
leave that for right now. That way they have time to write it down. And we're going to add that link to when we post the
Great.
video.
So yes, so we're going to add this link when we post the video, and then we're going to unmute. So if you do have questions, you can ask them now.
And you can always message us. Probably Instagram is the one we check the most. So if you think of something later, just message us at Instagram and make sure you follow us on there. We do a ton of giveaways. We're looking at something for the new season coming up.
You have a question. Can you give the planets for answer?
Yes.
Let's see here. Lagu, Ing.
Those are the ones I forgot. I'm
Yeah,
sorry.
yeah.
All right. So Ansur, the planets that I have, Ansur was Mercury. That's just that straight up mercurial energy. What were it was Ing and Lagu. With Lagu, I would have the moon and Neptune with that one. So again, think of that watery energy. Again, think that Lagu can have to do with your dreams as well and your imagination, which is a lot of times what Neptune influences. Ing, I've got Venus and Pluto together, which can kind of be an interesting aspect. So there's expansive energy under the surface, but sometimes you've got to, Bear likes to, he literally goes out in our front yard and torches our garden beds before he plants for the spring to kill off all the grass and all the unwanted growth and create that fertile soil that we're going to plant in. So that's kind of that Venus Pluto together. So were there any others that
Bjork.
Venus was Bjor.
And then Dave.
And Dag, the Sun and Jupiter.
And then Othel.
Othel, I would do Saturn. Because definitely has more to do with our physical world, our structure, literally related to that home and house.
And then another question, what is the alternate pronunciation called?
So there are different dialects.
Okay.
There is
Proto-Germanic,
Old-
Old English, Old German.
there's Old Norse. Yeah, Old Norse. So there's, if you can, I don't know off the top of my head, there is Old Norse, I believe is the version that Bear and I were using. There's also pronunciations that are, like he said, Old English, Proto-Germanic, and maybe one other one. So there's different dialects. That's how I would explain that. And I'm sure, we even used to have kind of a chart that gave like 3 different dialects and how you would pronounce them. And some of them carried over and then some of them were very different among each one.
You got lots of thank yous, great
Yes.
information.
Thank all of y'all, man.
Yes.
Y'all are awesome.
Very enjoyable.
We appreciate you sharing
Yeah,
your time with us.
Thank you guys for the opportunity.
I've got a question.
Go ahead.
Can y'all go and do a class on creating the sigils on like enchantments and stuff?
I definitely think that's in the future. When
Awesome.
I talked to the store about that, they said we would maybe be doing like a class a month. So we'll look at that. That's definitely, we wanted to cover more on doing the bind runes and sigils and staves, and then maybe even another class that more correlates with like the Norse gods and Norse pantheon and worlds and how the runes can be bridges between some of those.
Awesome. Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Yes, there's definitely interest in making enchantment or bind runes. And there's a question, is making enchantments or bind runes similar to making a sigil?
Yes, very much. So I would absolutely say making runes or enchantments is similar to making any kind of sigil, regardless of kind of what culture that's coming from.
All right, well, we will make the playback available.
Excellent. Well, we want to say again, thank you to Hearth Wisdom and Myra. Thank you so much for facilitating this. You are amazing. And thank you guys that showed up in person. I know we might not have made a whole lot of eye contact, but helped warm up the room. So.
Okay, well, with that, I doesn't look like we have any additional questions.
Okay.
Looks like people are going to head over and leave love donations. I've encouraged that. We'll post the link for the love donation links as well, too.
All right.
Awesome.
Thank y'all so much.
Make
We
sure you
appreciate
follow
it.
us on the socials.